Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. How many of you are in your 50s, late 50s, almost 60 mind you, and still get in trouble by your mum? I've just finished speaking to mum on the phone and I'm in trouble because I'm constantly using continuous zippers in my bags. It's in my best interest to keep my mum happy, so I'm going to do this quick little video showing you how to make a zippered bag of some kind with a regular zip. Come along with me and we'll make this zippered bag to keep all of our mothers happy. I think I'll also make this in 3 ways. So we're going to start off with exactly the same fabric size for every bag and we'll do 3 different finishes. Okay, I have the fabric cut out for all 3 bags. I'm going to be using the same lining fabric for all 3 bags. All of them have been cut out at exactly the same size. So we've got a Harry Potter, St Kilda Football Club, we've got footy season at the moment here, and then we have this one with the Beatles in it. So the construction to begin with is going to be pretty much the same until we get to boxing corners and making decisions there. So sizing, we have 2 lining pieces that are 9 inches by 7 inches. I'm using quilting cotton for all of these today. I have a scrap strip of fabric that is the same width as my zip. So my zip is about 1 inch or 1 1/8 of an inch wide. My fabric is the same width as that. We need 2 pieces that are about 3 inches long. And we have a zip. I'm not going to be using a continuous zip because I got in trouble. So today we're going to be using a regular dress zip because according to Mum, not everybody uses continuous zips. And you're right, Mum. Our main fabric pieces, we need 2 of those. They're 9 inches by 7 inches. And we need 2 pieces of lightweight fusible pellin for the bag. So I'm going to fuse the lightweight pellin onto the main fabric, so the outside fabric. And I'll do that for all of the bags in a minute. So as I said, everything for all of these bags is going to be exactly the same. Fabric, tabs, everything. The only other difference that I'm going to have is that I'm using lightweight pellin for 2 of them. And for one of them, I'm actually going to be using a 100% cotton batting. It's not very thick. So if you compare the thicknesses of the pellin here to the wadding, you can see there's quite a bit of difference. The cotton wadding isn't actually that thick when you compare it to quite a lot of quilt battings. So a really thin, lightweight, fusible pellin in 2 of the bags, and this is a non-fusible wadding for quilts. And I'm using up scraps of fabric for all of these as well. Let's get started. All of your bags are going to be 9 inches wide. We want our zips to be at least 9 inches in length. We're going to be trimming them back, but as long as you have at least 9 inches, it'll be easier to work with. Now I have a couple of zips that are slightly short for what I need. I'm going to be using some 8-inch zips and I've got a 12-inch zip, so overkill and underkill. This is how I'm going to work with them. I'm going to cut the metal ends off on my short zips, and I will do the same on the zip that's too long. So at the moment my short zips are going to finish at around 7.5 inches. Take your tab, fold it in half if you've got a long strip, and just cut that in half. Take one of your tabs, place it right side together, so you want the wrong side facing out. Place that directly over the end of the zip that you've cut. We'll do that for the other 2 zips as well. So you can use long strips of fabric and just cut them all up, but you want the minimum to be 3 inches by the width of your zip. And it doesn't matter that I've got the holes in the fabric from the selvage because this is all going to be hidden away in the lining shortly. That one's done, and we'll do the same for the red zip. Fold the fabric in half, right side together, and place that over the end of your zip. I'm going to take these to the machine and quickly sew those ends up. I don't need to take you with me, do I? I'll be right back. Okay, that didn't take long. I've sewn the tab onto the ends of each of my zips, and now all we need to do is take the tab and push it away from the zip and fold both layers toward the outside. So you can see now you've got the right side facing up on both sides of the zip there, and when we place this into our bag, that's what we're going to see. So a nice pretty fabric there. We'll do that for all of the zips. And now what I need is a zip to finish at 8 inches. I'm obviously not going to get that with these two because they're a bit short, but this one's got plenty of length in it. So I'm going to measure 8 inches from this folded edge here out this way. So I've made a mark just across here that's 8 inches from the folded edge here. I'm going to open the zip out, and we need to have our next piece of fabric finishing just here. To make it easier for you when you're putting this together at the machine, pinch the edges together here and just put some tape on the inside edge of the zip. My finishing line is just there and my tape is on this side here. By putting this tape together, this is going to keep these layers together when we go and sew this closed. So we can now go and cut this, and I'm going to cut this about 1/4 of an inch longer than I want, and then I'm going to place the fabric right side together in the same way that I did before. So I folded that in half, place that over the end of the zip there, and I can now take this to the machine without worrying about the zipper teeth coming apart at the end. That tape won't affect us in any way at all. We've cut our zip 1/4 of an inch longer than we actually need it, and that takes into account our seam allowance. With these ones here that are too short, I want to get as much out of the zipper teeth as I possibly can. I don't want to be sewing over the metal teeth here, so I'm going to tape this just a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch before the teeth. So I've got my tape ending here, the teeth end here. I'm going to trim off the metal bits on the end of the zip there, and I'll place this tab on in exactly the same way. So I'll repeat the same for the brown zip as well. Okay, I'm going to quickly go and sew 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of all of those three. The zips have all been prepared now. We'll do the same thing, just push the fabric away from the end of the zip. We've got our raw edges enclosed and everything nice and neat on both sides. And this tape here can be removed now. So this is just a really nice, simplified way of closing up the ends of your zips without the stress of worrying about whether or not it's lining up properly or whether the zip's too far apart. And I think this is just an ideal way for beginners to learn how to tackle zips. So the red zip is the one that's 8 inches in length, and the other two are slightly shorter, only probably 1 inch overall, not enough to worry about. It's not going to change the size of our bag. All it's going to do is change the size of the opening of our bag. Okay, now let's get on to the bag making. First thing we need to do is fuse the pallin onto the wrong side of the main fabric. I will go and do that quickly on all my bags. My pallin is fused to the wrong side of the main part of the bag, and I also have a directional fabric. So when I'm putting my zip in, I need to make sure that I've got the fabric the right way around. We don't want to have it upside down because it looks silly on the other side. If you have a non-directional fabric like this, it actually doesn't matter which way you put it together. Let's take the zip and we'll take one side of our fabric. We'll find the center of this fabric. So I've marked that with chalk, and we'll find the center of the zip as well. Now, when we're looking for the center, we want to find the center from the ends of the tabs here. That's the part of the zip that we are concerned with. We want to make sure that we've got equal sides of that across our bag. So I've marked the center of the zip and the center of the fabric. We're going to have the slider coming from the left to the right and place the teeth faced down and line that up across the center there, and you can pin it or clip it in place. And if the pull is in the way, just move that out of the way and continue to line that up all the way across until you get to the end. And just make sure that your tabs are pointing outward. You can see there's lots of overhang here. We'll trim that off later. I'll set that one aside. Now this one here is aimed at absolute beginners. So if you've never done a bag like this before, I'd recommend starting this way, and I'll show you what we can do with the next one if we want to put our linings on at the same time. Take this one here, we'll fold that in half as well, find the center, and we'll mark the center of this zip, and we'll place that right side down, line up all of those edges, and we'll take our lining piece and place that down as well. So line that up evenly all the way around and along the top, and then we'll clip that in place so that we have the zip sandwiched in between the two layers of fabric and the pellin. So there we have our lining and our main and the zip sandwiched in between here. Set that one aside, and for those that know how I usually do my bags, this one here is also a directional fabric, so I need to make sure when I put my zip on that I put the zip at the right end, not upside down. Now I know my regular viewers are wondering, why am I not using double-sided tape? Well, here it is. So double-sided tape is something else that not everybody has in their sewing room. So for the first two bags, I'm just using clips or pins, but double-sided tape is my absolute favourite thing to use when I'm putting zips on. Place the zip over the top of your bag, centre it evenly, and I'll just press that down onto the tape. This is a really good double-sided tape. It's for sewing, it's specific for sewing, so it doesn't gum up your needles like a lot of other products do. And then we'll run another row of tape along the top of that, and this just eliminates the use of pins and clips. It also helps prevent your fabric from shifting as you're inserting your zip. And we want our lining piece, place that over the top as well, and we'll just tape all of those layers together. So we have our lining and our main, zip sandwiched in between. Haven't used clips or pins, but we've used the double-sided tape. This one here, we're joining the main and the lining together with the zip, but I've got clips. And this one here, if you're an absolute beginner and have never done a zip before, then we'll just use the one layer to begin with, and we'll sew that zip down on one layer. Let's go to the machine. So I've got my zipper foot on, and I've got the slider well out of the way, and I'll start stitching down until the slider, and then I'll move that back up out of the way. So raise the foot, leave the needle down and move your slider back, and then you can continue to the end. For the two bags that we've attached the lining and the main at the same time, we can go and top stitch these, bring the lining behind the main fabric and separate it from the zip, so you want to have that sitting nice and flat underneath. And the area that we're top stitching is from the side of the zipper tab to the other side. I'm going to top stitch along the very edge here, but I don't want to start at the end. I want to start at the beginning or the ending of the zipper tab and go up to the other end of the zipper tab. By not stitching this section here, it's going to be easier for us to turn the bag through the other way and have the corners sitting nicely. Now we can't top stitch this one until we've put the lining on the front, so we'll go and do that one now. Okay, the top stitching is finished. I've just gone between the tabs there, and that's secured the lining on the back. That's done for both of those. And this one here, where we're doing them individually, the top stitching hasn't been done yet. We don't want to do that until we've got the lining in place. So again, place your lining directly over the top, put your clips in place, and then you can sew all the way down that long edge. So it doesn't matter if you put your lining on at the same time like we did with the other two bags, or if you do them individually. If you're a raw beginner and you've never done this before, it might be easier to just do the first side with the zip and then put the lining on, and that'll give you some confidence to later on go and put the 2 layers together like we've done here. So I'm showing you all the techniques that you can use, and then you can practice and develop it yourself. So that one we'll take back to the machine and sew down there. Once we've done that, we will top stitch, bring both fabrics to one side of the zip, flatten them out, and you'll top stitch between the tabs. With the other 2 bags, I'm going to go back to my tape method. So using the double-sided tape, I'm going to take the other side of my bag, and again, it's directional fabric, so I need to make sure that they're the right way. We don't want to have it going around like this, because when you put the bag together, one side will be upside down. And I'll just place some tape over the top edge here, peel that off, and then we'll place this faced down over the top. Line up the side edges of our bag, and then line up the top, and we can just press that in place. Or you can clip it if you don't have tape. So that's been pressed in place there, held together by the tape, and then we can take the other side, so bring the lining faced up. We'll run some more tape along the edge of the zip. Some people have difficulty getting the tape off. All you need to do is just run your fingernail down on the very edge there, and then that will lift, the paper will lift away easily. And with the lining, we're going to place that right side together, line up the side edges and the top, and press that down. And that's ready to go to the machine to be stitched. We'll repeat that for this one, and when we've finished sewing this one here and the top stitching, we'll come back and do exactly the same on this side. And once we've done the ones that have got the lining already attached, we'll top stitch again. When you get to the area where the slider is, lift your presser foot, move the slide out of the way, then you can continue on. Now we have both sides attached. What you want to do is spread the lining apart, and we'll do the top stitching on the opposite side. So we've done this side already. We'll turn around and we'll top stitch the opposite side, and again we're going to sew in between the tabs. So here are the 2 that we've finished so far. The lining and the main have all been stitched together, and the top stitching has been done on both sides. And the top stitching is just in between the area where the actual zip is. And this one that we're doing separately is going to look exactly the same. It's just taking a little bit longer. Now that I've shown you how to do this with individual layers, we're going to save some time and just process this exactly the same way that we did the other ones. So again, right side up, the orientation the right way, and I'm going to use tape, but you can use clips or pins, so you don't have to have tape. These are just some of the things that help you do a job a little bit easier. It's a little bit like cheating. So if you're still not confident to put your zip in with the 2 layers, you can go now and sew this along, and then come back and attach the lining separately. I'm going to save us some time and do all of that in one go now. So you'll process it exactly the same way as I showed you for the first half. So that's ready now to be stitched in one go. If you haven't done this before, it's worth having a try and just building up your confidence with it. And once again, you will spread the lining apart, open the bag out completely, and you'll top stitch that layer just like we did with the others. Okay, we've now got all of our bags at exactly the same stage. There's no difference in the way they look, even though this one here was finished slightly differently. It just took a little bit more time. At this point here, it's very important to make sure your zip is open, at least most of the way. So just open out your zip on your bags, and we don't need these excess tabs anymore, so we can trim those off. And now we're ready to start finishing the bag. So I'm going to give you a couple of different options here for finishing. First of all, you want to separate your lining from the main. And at this stage, we're still going to be doing the same thing as far as sewing the sides together. So what we want to do is line up the side at the end where the zip is. And the little tab there, you can fold that so that it sits out or in. It really doesn't make any difference as long as you do the same on both sides. So I'm going to fold my tab so that it sits out and line up the side seams of my lining so that each side matches up. Pop a clip in place there and then we can line up the other side. Remember, I'm pushing my tab to the outside of the bag only because it sits better on this particular bag. Line up the bag all the way to the end. Line up the main bag as well. And this is ready to go to the machine now and be sewn closed all the way around. We're going to leave an opening here of about 3 inches. So a back stitch here, sew it all the way around, come back to here, back stitch and leave an opening there. And we're going to do the same for the other 2 bags. So far the process is exactly the same. I'll go and clip the other 2 together and then we'll take them all to the machine. When I do sew these closed, when I get to the bulk of the fabric just on the sides where the zip is here, I'll go forward, back and forward again. So I like to triple stitch any areas that have a lot of bulk. Okay, all 3 are ready to be sewn together, and remember we're going to leave an opening in the lining section here and triple stitch on the side where the zipper section is. And I will start around about here as well. I like to start in the bulk area and then come around to the main and then sew that. Then if the lining isn't quite right, it doesn't matter if it doesn't line up perfectly because it's much more forgiving on the inside of the bag. Let's take it to the machine and sew them. Throughout this whole project we are using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'll back stitch here and then I'll move further down about 3 inches away and start again with another back stitch and continue around to where I began. And we'll repeat that for the other 2. Okay, at this point our bags are almost finished and hopefully you've remembered to leave your zip open on the inside. So I'm going to finish this 3 slightly different ways. This bag here is the one that's got the beetles on it. I'm going to leave it exactly as is. I'm not going to do any boxed corners at all. So this bag is finished, except that I want to trim the corners on the lining and the main. And now I can turn this bag the right way round. So I'm going to leave this as a very flat pouch. This one here is the Harry Potter one. I'm going to make a small boxed corner. So I'm going to do a boxed corner of only 1/2 inch. Now a 1/2 inch corner will give me 1 inch across the bottom when it's finished. So from the stitching line here, I'm going to mark a 1/2 inch square. So from the stitching line, it's a 1/2 inch. Repeat that on this side and on the lining as well. So I'm going to draw those lines in on both sides just so that you can see what I've done. So this one I've marked the corners on all sides of the bag, and the only reason I've done that, as I said, is so that you can see what I've done. I'm then going to open the fabric out. I'm going to separate the layers and pinch it together, and you can see I have a line going across here, and that square comes out into a point on both sides. So what I will do here is just lay that out. I'll have this seam going in toward my left, the seam behind going toward my right, and that will help the seams align when we close this up. And then you can take a pin and we're going to sew over that line I've drawn. We'll repeat that for all 4 corners. I'm often asked in my videos why I do one style over another, and the reason for that is mostly so that you can see that there are different options. This is my preferred technique. I would rather take my corners to the machine like this, sew over them, and then trim them off later. For speed as well as stability of the stitches, because we've sewn around the side edges, as soon as we cut this, it's going to start unraveling the stitches. So I actually prefer to work out what my boxing is, leave it intact and sew it closed at the machine, then trim it, than I do if I actually cut the box corners out. But that really is personal choice for everybody. Because I sew so many of these, it's much quicker for me to actually go and do this technique. So this is a 1/2 inch box corner. The next one I'm going to make with a 1 inch box corner, and these ones will actually cut out. So again, there's my stitching line along here. I'm going to measure 1 inch from the stitching line and repeat that for the lining. Just line it up on your stitching line. Then I'm going to fold this in half because I like to minimize the amount of work that I do, and cut on that drawn line. And there's my boxed corners cut out, and repeat for this side. Because it's a little bit thick, I might just do them individually. Then we can pinch the fabric out. Be careful that your stitches don't unravel on the side seam, and I want my seam to go one direction and the other seam to go in the opposite direction. So it doesn't matter whether you go left or right, as long as they're in opposing directions. And that just helps distribute the bulk of the seam. So this one here I have facing my right, so I'm going to continue that down to the end and have the under seam going to my left, and repeat that for the lining. Okay, now all of the bags are ready to be finished. This one's already finished. I'll turn that through shortly. This one here has got the small boxed corner of 1/2 inch, and this one has the 1 inch. We're going to go and sew directly onto the stitching line here. I'll do this twice because of the thickness in the pellin. The lining only needs to be done once. And we'll do the same on here, 1/4 inch seam right across the edge there, and I'll double stitch the main. The lining only needs to be 1 row of stitching. Okay, the boxing is all finished. This one here's been stitched all the way around, and I've trimmed off the little ears from this one, and now we can turn the bag the right way around. Just pop your hand in there, grab the main bag and bring that through your lining, and then you can poke out all your corners and check that everything's lined up nicely. So you can see the stitching line across here and at the side matches up. It's nice and straight, and that's nice and straight across there. When you're happy that everything matches up, we need to close up the bottom section. So we'll just pinch the opening together, and it will want to fold in, and we can take that back to the machine and stitch that closed. So the lining has just been top stitched really close to the edge there. You can tuck that back in and tidy up all of your bags, and we can have a look and see how they all compare. We now have 3 bags all with exactly the same beginnings, so they were all cut at exactly the same size, but we have 3 different outcomes. So no boxing on the corner here, it's just a completely flat bag. You can see the little zipper tabs at the top there, which help it sit nice and square. And then we have this one here that has the 1 inch boxed corner which gives us 2 inches overall at the base, and this one here that has the 1/2 inch box corner, which will give us 1 inch at the base. So you can see what difference this makes in height. So by having that extra 1/2 inch cut out of the fabric at the bottom, reduces the height by 1/2 inch. And over here, we've got this bag here, started exactly the same size, but because we've put that 1 inch boxed corner at the bottom, we've got a bag that is 1 inch shorter. So whatever you do with your boxing of your bags, that will affect the height of your bag. It'll also affect the side of your bag as well. If I had have done a boxed corner at the top here, the bag would be another inch shorter, but it would be straight all the way up and have a nice 2 inch side. The height of your bags isn't the only thing that's impacted when you box your corners. What will also be impacted is the width of your bag. If you cut out a 1 inch boxed corner and you do that on both sides, you're actually taking off 2 inches overall on the width of your bag. You'll see here, there's about 2 inches difference in the overall width of my bag because I've taken this piece of fabric, it's folded in to the side, and the same thing has happened on this side. Likewise on this one here, I've only done a 1/4 inch boxed corner. It's made the width of the bag 1 inch shorter overall. So in the end, if you take off an inch on each side, you're going to make it narrower by 2 inches. If you take an inch off the bottom, you're going to shorten it by 1 inch. Likewise, if you end up having box corners on the bottom and on the top, then you're going to shorten your bag by 2 inches as well. For those that have been confused about box corners, I hope that's also helped you understand how all of that works a little bit better as well. So there we have 3 bags, exactly the same size to begin with, but different outcomes. So they haven't turned out too badly at all, have they? Exactly the same piece of fabric to begin with for all of them. The zippers were slightly different sizes because I didn't have what I wanted to begin with, but you can see how easily you can adapt anything to suit whatever it is you want to make. If you want to have your tabs on the side of the bag showing a little bit more, so if you'd like to have it coming in a little bit more, all you need to do is make that zipper tape a little smaller. I'd suggest starting off with 1/4 inch increments, just so that you don't end up having too big a tab on the sides and not enough of a closure. So you could easily go and take off an extra 1/4 inch on the ends of your zips so that you can have just a little wider tab. We've got to thank Mum for this one. She's made me go and do these bags using regular zips, and it was actually a really good point too, because I do realise that not everybody has access to continuous zips in their sewing room or even double-sided tape. So if you're a raw beginner and you want to take it slowly, you can do what I've done with this bag here, add the layers separately. If you want to speed up a little bit or you've got more confidence, use a double-sided tape, put all of your layers together. And likewise with the zips, you can see how easy it is to use a regular zip compared to the continuous zips that I use all the time. These ones are slightly easier because you don't have to go and put the slider on. It's already on there and there's nothing else you need to worry about as long as it doesn't come off by accident. Thanks, Mum. I hope this makes you happy, because we know I'm your favourite daughter, right? I hope you've all enjoyed this video. Oh, you'll notice that I've put labels on my bags as well. If you're going to sew these to sell, put the labels on when you've fused your batting on. I've put labels on these because I do plan on putting them in the shop. There's no point in me keeping them at home. I have got so many bags in my cupboards. So I will actually put about $20 on that one, because these are Harry Potter and St Kilda Football Club fabrics. I'll do 30, I'll do 35 on that one because it is a St Kilda Football Club fabric bag and it's footy season at the moment. It'll sell very quickly. I think 20, maybe 25, 35 for that one. Let me know what your opinion is about the zips as well. If you prefer me to do more projects with regular zips rather than the continuous zips, I'll do that as well. I'm happy to do that. You let me know what you think. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.